Around the same time, initially presented at San Antonio last year, were the results of deruxtecan trastuzumab. This is a immunoconjugate, another antibody drug conjugate with trastuzumab as the backbone, and an irinotecan derivative, and deruxtecan, which is a synthetic topoisomerase 1 inhibitor. The trial compared, in this trial, the comparison was with chemotherapy and trastuzumab of physicians, chemotherapy of physician's choice and trastuzumab compared to the antibody drug conjugate. And this was just a phase 2 study, but it showed dramatic response. The response rate of 60% that was generally wasn't expected in this group of patients really was such a strong finding, even in the absence of the randomized study, which is ongoing now to get the drug registered. It was actually approved by the FDA just on the basis of the phase 2 data. It's a conditional approval. There are some cautionary notes about this drug. There is an incidence of pneumonitis, interstitial lung disease, and fatality rates of around 2%. So this is something that needs to be watched for. One of the key advances in the treatment of advanced HER2-positive breast cancer has been the development of different kinase inhibitors, such as neratinib. The initial one, of course, that was approved is lapatinib. Tucatinib is a HER2-specific kinase inhibitor that showed very early promise in phase 1 and phase 1b testing. This drug is typically used in combination with trastuzumab and capecitabine. So the triplet of those three drugs was shown to be very active in phase 1 studies, including CNS responses that were pretty dramatic. So the HER2 CLIMB study was the registrational randomized study that compared what had been used before quite frequently, trastuzumab and capecitabine, with or without tucatinib. That trial showed a dramatic improvement in disease-free survival, initially presented at San Antonio last year and published in the New England Journal of Medicine. And what was unique about this trial is it enrolled patients with CNS metastases. About half the patients had had prior brain metastases that were treated, but some were untreated. The protocol actually allowed patients that had either no or minimal CNS symptoms to enroll with untreated brain metastases. And the overall study showed a significant improvement in disease-free and overall survival, and roughly 1/2 of the recurrences and 1/3 fewer mortality events. And that led ultimately to the approval of that drug. In the group of patients that had CNS metastases, there was also a disease-free survival advantage noted. And at ASCO this year, Nancy Lin presented the data more focused on the brain metastases. And this, again, showed not only activity in the brain, but showed a survival advantage in the subgroup of patients that had brain metastases. So this is really an important new drug, not just in terms of overall activity, but in patients with brain metastases. We will be looking forward to seeing this agent tested in earlier lines of metastatic disease. These trials are already ongoing. And also in the early stage setting for patients who don't achieve a complete response to standard induction HER2 targeted therapy. On the basis of the Catherine data, we know that patients need at least TDM1 as opposed to trastuzumab, but this study will also test the addition of tucatinib to TDM1.